Hey everyone, welcome to week 6. We don't have many weeks left in this term. So let us get started because there's a lot going on and I want to talk about a few things, especially that have to do with this week's subject. Okay, so last week, the first thing that I want to mention is that you had another one of those milestones due. Be sure and look at your critiques over the last couple of milestones, because you need to fix the things that are wrong before you turn in the final project. I also posted this week, I believe on Friday, a template for what your final project could look like. This is an example or a template. You can look at it either way. So you can tell what I expect this final project to look like in your presentation. And I believe that's week 7, not this week. Yeah, week 7. So make sure you go back and look at those critiques and fix the things that need to be fixed. When I grade that final project, I will grade it like that. It's the first time that I have seen that material. So you have a chance to fix everything. All right, let's talk about last week. You learned about DNA and how important it is. It's the molecule of heredity. You learned about mitosis, a type of cell division. Not the only type, but a very important type. And transcription and translation, which is actually the work of DNA in producing all the proteins that your body needs. Most of those are enzymes, and those enzymes run your biochemistry. Okay, then what do we have going on this week? You have some chapters to read, chapters 11 and 12, which are in Unit 3, which have to do with meiosis, which is a type of cell division which reduces the chromosome number. And this is really important before sexual reproduction can happen. So that's meiosis. And then in chapter 12, you're going to learn about inheritance patterns with Mendelian genetics and sex-linked traits and different types of inheritance. That's chapter 12. Chapter 47, which is in Unit 8, the last unit in the textbook, it's all about biodiversity and the importance of it. And why should we have biodiversity? Why do we need to keep plants and animals and all other organisms on the planet from going extinct? What's the importance of this? So biodiversity, and biodiversity is actually related to sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction ensures that you get lots of variation in the organisms that are produced. And this increases your chances of staying viable as a species and allows your survival and keeps biodiversity healthy and alive and intact. Okay, make sure you read the Module 6 overview and watch the videos. I couldn't get Tale of Two Mice to come up when I clicked on it. So here is a link for you, or you can just go to YouTube and search for it. But I have a link for you right here to go to. And you need this. I think this is for the discussion board postings. Yeah. So the discussion board postings are all about nature versus nurture. This has been a long-term discussion for decades and even centuries now. So what's more important to how you turn out as an organism? Does your environment influence what you are, or is it truly completely in your genes? Which one is it? Or is it a combination of both? And so that's why it's important to watch Tale of Two Mice, because these are identical mice, but they do not look the same. So do your discussion board postings. Remember to get that initial post in by Thursday night, and then your 2 response posts in by Sunday night. Then you have a journal entry. You're going to discuss asexual versus sexual reproduction. So you're going to talk about asexual reproduction in bacteria. Bacteria reproduce just by dividing in half, and it's called binary fission. But they have to have ways of getting new genetic information. And they have several ways. Conjugation, transduction. You will look these up and you will find them. So look up that information about bacteria and how they reproduce and how they get new genetic information. And then you're going to take a look at the importance of sexual reproduction. There's got to be a reason that the bigger organisms on the planet do sexual reproduction. And I'll mention this in a minute when I get to my further slides. And then you're also going to talk about genetic erosion in agriculture, which means that there's not a lot of genetic diversity in the organisms that are raised in agriculture. It's the same types of cows across the country that are raised for beef or raised to produce milk. They're the same types of tomatoes that are raised by farmers. One thing I want you to consider is the popularity these days of heirloom varieties, because there are lots and lots of catalogs, seed catalogs especially, where you can find heirloom varieties. And this is all related to this genetic erosion problem. Can we solve the problem by keeping these heirloom varieties? And you also need to be working on your slides for your final project, and that's why I posted the template that I did on Friday. Okay, let me go over a few extra things. The importance of sexual reproduction. I give you a picture here of the Duggar family. You know them from TV. And the only reason that I put them on here is because they have so many children. So when you take a look at their family, you'll notice something. None of their kids looks exactly the same. Why is that? Because of sexual reproduction. Let's see if I can move my head a little bit so I'm not in the middle of the words. There you go. None of their kids looks exactly the same, and this is because of the way that sexual reproduction works. In fact, in human beings, we each make 8 million different types of gametes when we make either our eggs or our sperm as females and males. And then when we put these two different combinations together, you can be assured that two siblings are never going to be exactly the same. Have similarities, true, but never exactly the same. So this shows the importance of sexual reproduction. You get variety in your offspring, and you're hoping that this variety will increase the survival rate of at least some of your offspring. So that's the importance of sexual reproduction. Another thing, let me move my talking head again. Another thing to consider is that genes, which are discussed in these two sections and were also discussed last week, genes equal traits. So the traits that we talked about with the Mendelian inheritance, this relates directly back to genes, segments of DNA. So these segments of DNA code for your traits. Some examples I give here are albinism, height, and extreme height, you see right here. Height is determined by at least 5 different genes. And sickle cell anemia, you see red blood cells that have sickled out up there in the right-hand corner. These are all traits, and we have so many, thousands and thousands of traits in us to make us human beings. Biodiversity, this is a great picture that I found. Biodiversity, all the different organisms on the planet help produce the health of the biosphere. And without this, we will not have a healthy biosphere. So it's terribly important that we keep biodiversity and we prevent organisms from going extinct. Epigenetics, I want to mention what this is because this has to do with that video on Tale of Two Mice. Epigenetics, epi means around, so around genetics. This is modification of gene expression. So the genes are there, right? And in fact, in every cell in your body, you have all the genetic information that's required to make you a human being. But all of your cells don't look alike. You have lots and lots of different types of cells, from red blood cells to brain cells to muscle cells to immune cells to spleen cells to kidney cells. There's so many different types of cells. The cells look different from each other. So if all the DNA is in every one of these cells, then why do they look different from each other? There's a difference in gene expression. So which genes are turned on and which ones are turned off? This is so important. If we could figure out how to do this, we could cure so many diseases. We definitely could cure cancer. I mean, there just would be no question about this. If we could figure this out, how to turn genes on and off, and how to turn the genes on and off that we want to turn on and off. This is epigenetics. Environmental conditions help to determine which genes are turned on and off, and so that's part of that Tale of Two Mice video that you're going to watch. And then finally, I mentioned that there's this question about nature versus nurture. Is it all in your genes? This is what makes you who you are, or is it all the environmental influences, where you're raised, how you're raised, what you're exposed to? Does that determine who you are as a person, as an organism? This has been a hot debate for many years, and scientists have sided on one side or the other of this debate. And as we learn more, we're finding out that in fact both of these determine who the organism is. I've also included a video which is really interesting about identical twin girls who were separated at birth. It's an interesting discussion, and they were separated on purpose to be studied in an identical twin study, scientific study. This was unethical, but not illegal at the time that they were separated. And just take a look at them. Take a look at their mannerisms, their body types, their facial expressions, and you will realize that nature is a very important part of making you who you are, because these two women were raised in totally different households, and they did not even know about each other until they were in their 30s. But somehow they have a lot of similarities. Now, do their environments change them in certain ways? I am guaranteed that is true. So take a look at the video because it's really interesting. It's short, 8 minutes, I think. So give it a look and see what you think about it. And as always, if you have any questions this week, if you need any help, if you're not understanding something, whatever, if you're having some trouble, you're sick or whatever, please let me know. Send me an email message. I will get right back to you as soon as I can. And have a wonderful week.